This is Federalist 36, Part 2. Just make sure that you look at Federalist 36, Part 1 before following this. I think it would be important to listen to that. Now you can just focus on listening, and this is paragraph 2 of Federalist 36. The subject might be placed in several other lights that will lead all to the same result. And in particular, it might be asked, what greater affinity or relation of interest can be conceived between the carpenter and blacksmith, and the linen manufacturer or stock weaver, than between the merchant and either of them? It's notorious that there are often as great rivalships between different branches of the mechanic or manufacturing arts as there are between any of the departments of labor and industry, so that unless the representative body were to be far more numerous than would be consistent with any idea of regularity or wisdom in its deliberations, it is impossible that what seems to be the spirit of the objection we have been considering should ever be realized in practice. But I forbear to dwell longer on a matter which has hitherto worn too loose a garb to admit even of an accurate inspection of its real shape or tendency. Remember, in the last paper, people were saying that fishermen should have their own representatives, artisans should have their own representatives, people who are in carpentry should have their own representatives, and the number of representatives in the House of Representatives should be more. And Hamilton says, no, there are those three groups of people that we've talked, they will represent everybody else. And plus, we see that even amongst fishermen, there will be subdivisions and subdivisions. We can't constantly add more representatives just because there are these subdivisions of interest. So he says, we've already talked about this and we can't go on talking about this continuously. Again, next paragraph, there is another objection of a somewhat more precise nature which claims our attention. It has been asserted that a power of internal taxation in the national legislature could never be exercised with advantage, as well from the want of a sufficient knowledge of local circumstances as from an inference between the revenue laws of the Union and of the particular states. Remember, this is the part that I said in part 1 of this Federalist. I said they're complaining that people at the national legislature will not be informed enough about the states to make laws. And Hamilton's going to say, just like people in the counties are informed about counties in the states and they help the state lawmakers know what they need to know, or at least the information they have will help them. He says here in the same thing for the national legislature, the state, the representatives to the House of Representatives will have all the knowledge we need about the state, and then at the federal level, at the national level, they'll make the right decisions. The supposition of proper knowledge, of want of proper knowledge, seems to be entirely destitute of foundation, without foundation. If any question is depending in a state legislature respecting one of the counties which demand a knowledge of local details, how is it acquired? No doubt from the information of the members of the county. Cannot the like knowledge be obtained in the national legislature from the representatives of each state? And is it not to be presumed that the men who will generally be sent there will be possessed of the necessary degree of intelligence to be able to communicate that information. Is the knowledge of local circumstances as applied to taxation, a minute topographical acquaintance with all the mountains, rivers, streams, highways, and bypaths in each state? Or is it a general acquaintance with its situation and resources, with the state of agriculture, commerce, manufacturers, with the nature of its products and consumptions, with the different degrees and kinds of its wealth, property, and industry? So he says smart people in the states will be knowledgeable enough when they come to the capital of the country to bring the general knowledge that we need to make good laws. He said you don't need everything in detail, in minute details. You just need to be knowledgeable about the whole picture, somewhat in depth, not in minute details. Nations in general, even under governments of the more popular kind, usually commit the administration of their finances to single men or to boards composed of a few individuals who digest and prepare, in the first instance, the plans of taxation, which are afterward passed into laws by the authority of sovereign or legislature. See, he says even in the countries that are way too democratic and want to have everybody involved, he says when it comes to finances, that number shrinks, gets smaller and smaller, and they finally give it to a board of knowledgeable people to do that. And he says, we're doing the same thing in this new constitution. Inquisitive and enlightened statesmen are everywhere deemed best qualified to make a judicious selection of the objects proper for revenue, which is a clear indication, as far as the sense of mankind can have weight in the question, of the species of knowledge of local circumstances requisite to the purposes of taxation. The taxes indeed to be comprised under the general denomination of internal taxes may be subdivided into those of direct and those of indirect kind. Though the objection be made to both, yet the reasoning upon it seems to be confined to the former branch, and indeed, as to the latter, by which must be understood duties and excises on articles of consumption. One is at a loss to conceive what can be the nature of difficulties apprehended. The knowledge relating to them must evidently be of a kind that will either be suggested by the nature of the article itself, or can easily be procured from a well-informed man, especially of mercantile class. The circumstances that may distinguish its situation in one state from its situation in another must be few, simple, and easy to comprehend. The principal thing to be attended to would be to avoid those articles which had previously appropriated to the use of a particular state, and there would be no difficulty in ascertaining the revenue system of each. This could always be known from the respective codes of laws, as well as from the information of the members of the several states. So he says, we'll have knowledgeable enough people to make laws that would not be harsh on people, that would not tax people, that would make the government do the right things. So all this criticism from our opponents is really not called for. In the next paragraph, the objection when applied to real property or to houses and lands appear to have at first sight more foundation. But even in this view, it will not bear a close examination. land taxes are commonly laid in one of two modes, either by actual valuations, permanent or periodical, or by occasional assessments at the discretion or according to the best judgment of certain officers, whose duty it is to make them. In either case, the execution of business, which alone requires the knowledge of local details, must be developed upon discrete persons in the character of commissioners or assessors, elected by the people or appointed by the government for that purpose. All that the law can do must be to name the person or to prescribe the manner of their election or appointment, to fix their number and qualifications, and to draw the general outlines of their power and duties. And what is there in all this that cannot as well be performed by the national legislatures as by the state legislatures? The attention of either can only reach to general principles. Local details, as already observed, must be referred to those who are to execute the plan. Again, if you want to tax house, land, property, the state governments have mechanisms of finding people, certifying people to be assessors, to be able to go and find what the value of the property is. He says states can do that, have done it. So will the national government. So it's the same thing. We might just write the laws so for these people to follow these rules and what their qualifications should be, but then the rest of it is something that states do, and we can cooperate on that between state and national government. So again, he says there are always ways to find solution to whatever question comes up, and these people should not make it that difficult, should not be naysayers. Okay, we will follow in the next video.